Hello. Um, if you're new to me, I welcome you to my world. I'm glad you're here. And I love it when people share their responses to anything that I have to say. So put a comment down below. Um, and if you're back again watching me, nice to see you again. So today I wanted to share a little story with you. Well, it wasn't so little for me, but it really illustrates how all of the turmoil up here affects everything in the body. And for me, what it affected most was my ability to sleep. It affected everything else too, but my ability to sleep was completely impacted by all the stress thoughts going on in my mind. And the year was 2016. Excuse me. I was still practicing in my acupuncture clinic. And I got an envelope one day, and it was from the state attorney general's office suing me on behalf of the acupuncture board because I had a patient that made a complaint. And I looked at this and I thought, what? What? There was nothing in that complaint that had anything to do with reality. I remembered the patient who was extremely strange, and I don't say that about my patients, but this young man was not only strange to me, but even my front desk person who the people that worked for me never said anything negative about my patients. The only comments they would ever make were, aren't they nice? Isn't that a nice person? Other than that, it was strictly business. Excuse me. But this guy was so strange that even my front desk person came back to me and said, he's weird. I said, yeah, I know, but oh well. Then I get this packet in the mail telling me I'm being sued on behalf of the acupuncture board. The state attorney general's office was suing me. I was, what? I immediately kind of went into an alternate reality, shall we say. I have no idea what happened in my brain at that point, but it was like I didn't know how to think. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know anything. I was, to say shocked, I know what shock means, truly means. I was in a state of shock. And eventually it occurs to me that, wait a minute, I have malpractice insurance. So I call them. And it's a long story, which I won't go into now, but they dropped me. Yes, I had been paying and paying and paying for years and years and years, and they just dropped me. So now I have to reach into my own pocket, which is not that deep. If you want to have a deep pocket, become a plumber, or an electrician or something like that. And then you'll make money. But to be an acupuncturist, you're not making megabucks. Okay. So now I have to dip into my own pocket in order to go ahead and get an attorney. Fortunately, the attorney I got came through a recommendation from a friend, and so he was willing to work with me. I could at least pay him in payment plans. And I went into his office, and he obviously saw that I was in a state of shock. And year-long story was that I discovered that I had options here. I could either fight it or I could settle with them. Those are the two options I had. Well, initially, my knee jerk response was, well, fight it, of course, because this is BS. None of this is real. My attorney informs me that if I lose, and it is possible that I could lose even though it's BS because it's a he said, she said situation. If I lose, I owe the state for their expenses. He called the day before we were supposed to go to court. Their expenses at that point were up to $35,000. I don't know about you, but I don't have a spare $35,000 lying around. Okay. Okay. So now I'm still in shock. If I win, the state does not have to pay my legal expenses, which were up to about $7,000 at that point. So fighting it, if I win, I get to be right. And it would cost me more than 7,000 because that was before we would go to court. So probably a minimum, we're talking a minimum of $10,000 to $12,000 to be right. If I lose, 35,000 was before we went to court. It got to be at least $50,000. I don't know what you would do, but my knee-jerk response was, let's settle. Now, initially, they wanted $16,500 to settle this. And my attorney just laughed at them. So he got it down to $4,000. So in the end, I wound up having to spend $11,500, which I could pay off over a year, thanks to the fact that this attorney was a friend of mine. That was 2016. You can imagine what was going on up here. Constant. I mean, I was like catatonic. I would go into my clinic. I was still treating patients. I'd walk in with the file and say, hello, good to see you today. Tell me what's going on with you. How are you feeling? And I would get more history, and then I would treat people. And then I would go into my office and I'd cry. And I'd dab my eyes and go into the next office. Hello, how are you today? And I'd treat the next person. And then I'd go back into my office and I'd cry. And every night I would lie there like this. I was supposed to be going to sleep, right? Sleep? All of this going on up here, the thoughts. What if? Oh my God, how could this happen? I've been in practice for over 20 years. Nobody has ever done this. Why? What is this about? Who was this person? Why did he do this to me? What's going on? And the state, this is BS. The only reason the board exists is to make money. They want money. That's all they, and on and on and on. I lost sleep. I mean, of course I lost sleep. I didn't sleep for a whole year. Okay. I lost weight. I don't recommend this as a weight loss program. If you want to lose weight, we can talk about that. Don't do it this way. I couldn't eat. What are you kidding? And I love food. I love to cook and I love to eat. I couldn't eat. I lost sleep. I lost weight. I lost hair. I lost money. I lost 80% of my practice. I lost. And all of the thoughts that were going on, which didn't change a thing in terms of the eventual outcome, all of those stressed out thoughts, that had nothing to do with the outcome. The outcome was whatever the outcome was, which ultimately I paid him off. And that's how I got out of that. And then I went on and on and on for a while longer, going, that's not fair. This is BS. And now I have this on my record. And, you know, did it change anything though? No. But that's logic. Logic will tell you that these thoughts aren't going to change the outcome. That's nice. I do have a logical brain, but so what? When you are stressed to the max, logic gets buried somewhere. That's the prefrontal cortex. That seems to go offline. And what comes in instead is like the amygdala, the emotions, and the like nonstop turmoil going on in your head. How did I tried everything that year to get some sleep because as a healthcare practitioner, I know how important sleep is. I'm not ignorant about the subject. I understand it's important. However, when you're under stress to the max, when you're clenching your jaw 24/7, when your like whole body is contracted like this, logic, as I say, gets buried. And I could not talk my way out of it. I couldn't drug my way out of it. Besides which, the drugs that I have tried for sleep, forget it. I'd rather not sleep and have a brain that can function in the morning so I can go to work and treat my patients. Because when I took any of those drugs, some of them didn't do anything, like melatonin, ridiculous. I could have taken a sugar pill, it did nothing. GABA, same thing. It didn't do anything for me. And that's crazy because GABA should really do something. I was obviously so stressed out, the GABA didn't have a shot at me. It couldn't touch it. I tried Tylenol PM. That's how desperate I was. Forget it. The next day, my head was inside of a bag that was filled with hair gel or something like that. It was crazy, crazy. I couldn't function, So I need to function. I figured at some point in my life, I would get to sleep again, that this would be behind me. I didn't know when, I didn't know how, I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I didn't know anything. But I knew that at some point I wasn't going to die before this would be over. But that was my only consoling thought. What eventually finally penetrated and helped calm me down was that I began to teach some practices, some energy practices. That's part of Chinese medicine, part of what I studied, part of what I used to do before I got so crazed. I began to put them into practice myself, and I began to teach them to my patients. And I taught them to my patients because I needed them myself. I need to get back into doing my practice. When can I do that? How about after work? So after office hours, after clinic hours, my patients would come in and we would do energy practices together. And then I would go home. And now it's like 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night by the time I got home. Perfect. Feed the cat, go to bed, and it helped. I started to get at least a few hours of sleep a night, because before that, it would be like 20 minutes here and half an hour there. I would just be staring at the clock all night long. But then I began to get a few hours of sleep here and a few hours of sleep there, and it would add up, and I was doing better that way. And eventually, the lawsuit was over. I got it done. And then those energy practices started to really kick in, and I started to get to sleep again. Oh my gosh. Plus, not just energy practices, but which supplements actually helped with the anxiety, with all of the thoughts, because a lot of them, forget it. As I said, melatonin, I laugh at melatonin. It's a joke. The only time melatonin has ever done anything for me is if I'm doing time zone changes. And I have found that actually there's a diet that works better for that than melatonin, which is crazy. I don't know why it works better. I don't understand the why of it. I just know I've used it and it works. But if you're not going through time zone changes, if you're not flying from here to there, forget melatonin. It's not really going to do anything. At least in my experience, it's useless. Trazodone, forget it. I want to wake up in the morning and have my brain. That was my experience. I didn't have a brain when I took trazodone. I didn't have a brain when I took Ambien. I didn't have a brain when I took Tylenol PM. None of that. Those things just didn't allow this to function. So I needed the balance. I needed to be able to calm down at night and be wide awake in the morning and functional. So I realized that what I had studied and practiced for decades actually works. It actually works. And for me, I wasn't interested in taking the drugs. There were supplements that helped. But I know that when I taught this to people who were trying different supplements or drugs for sleep and it didn't work, this actually helped it work. So if you've tried GABA, and some people have a very bad reaction to GABA. I didn't. But for some people, GABA didn't work. And yet, when they did the practice, it started to work. I was lucky. The practice itself helped me. Hey, I know that's luck or just genetics or whatever, body chemistry, whatever it is. So I have created a course called A Radical Approach to Insomnia, because I know that just throwing one pill after another at insomnia, for me, that didn't work. And also, when you think about it, if this pill and that pill and the other pill doesn't work, why are you going to keep throwing pills at it? How about getting to the root cause? And in Eastern medical thinking, the root cause has everything to do with the energy flow in your body. And what gets captive by it is the brain, the thoughts, thoughts, the anxiety that will not allow the energy to come in and down at night. It's supposed to come in and down at night so that you go down to sleep. You put a child down at night so they can sleep. It's supposed to come up and out during the day so you can wake up and go out into the world. Okay? When the energy is not doing this, you're not going to sleep at night and you're not going to wake up in the morning. So we need to figure out how to change the energy flow. And when we do these practices, it really does engage the brain in a very different way so that you're not able to have those thoughts. Some people use television or, they watch TikTok videos on their cell phones or whatever to distract the mind from the thinking. And distraction is actually a good technique. But using blue light sources such as television and cell phones and such isn't really the best thing. There are some people that say they can do that, and that's fine if you can do that, but the science behind it doesn't recommend that. Now, I realize that we're not all cut from the same cloth, and for some people, if that works for you, go for it. If you can sleep with that, do it. I'm in favor of doing anything that it takes to help you sleep, because we all know we're supposed to sleep. So, but for those of you for whom blue light is not a good thing, and in fact, at night, any light at all is not a good thing. There's times during the day, different times of the day, that different light sources are good, and that's part of the course. Okay, I talk about light and its effects. So, for those of you who are interested in trying out a new way, a new approach, a radical approach, and I say radical because it's so different than just popping pills. Okay, I am going to be starting this course on June 9th, I believe. Second Thursday in June, which I think is the 9th. Anyway, I will talk to you more about this. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below. Let me know if you're struggling with insomnia. Let me know what you've tried. Let me know, if it's anxiety that's keeping you up at night, because it sure was for me. Okay. And here I am now. And guess what? I'm sleeping at night. And I want you to be sleeping at night too. I will put a link to the course down below, but I won't be able to do that until tomorrow because I'm having technical difficulties. Ah, yes. I don't know if Mercury is in retrograde or what, but things are not quite working the way they should, but they will again. And until next week, sleep tight. See you again. Leave a comment.